Warning: the podcast you are about to listen to discusses films on the basis of the craft of screenwriting. It contains spoilers. Films discussed may also contain offensive content.
In this episode, we'll be discussing U.H.F, released in 1989, and The Pirates, Band of Misfits, released in 2012.
Hello, and welcome to Jay and Dave Went to Film School podcast, episode 14.
This is it, episode 14. And we are having, the part 2 to our sci-fi episode. Jason's episode, as his favorite genre is sci-fi. One of my favorite genres is comedy.
Yeah, we're kind of going back to back here with some favorite genres. And, I have long appreciated comedy. How long have you appreciated comedy?
It's almost like, how long have I appreciated, blinking or breathing? Like, do I like laughing? Yeah. How do I know I like laughing? I laugh. So, I guess from as long as I was human, I've liked comedy.
That is true. It seems to be somewhat innate to humanity that we enjoy laughter.
Yeah, no, it's really true. As a somewhat also person who likes looking through history, I like seeing that people back in the day also had senses of humor, which, I don't know, always felt really funny to me, knowing that people laughed back in the day. I know this one fun fact that in Pompeii, there's still some graffiti on the wall of, the earliest poop joke humor that people had.
One of the earliest jokes ever found, archaeologically. People have laughed for a long time and found funny things to laugh about for a long time. I think it's one of God's greatest gifts to humanity.
Yeah, comedy has incredibly deep roots in storytelling as well. It's notably always paired up with drama. If we look at the Greek theaters and all that. Personally, I think comedy was born out of cautionary tales. The stories we tell kids to stay away from dangerous stuff, don't go into the dangerous river or else you die. So yeah, Aesop did a lot of comedy as well with some of his fables, in my opinion.
How does that lead to comedy, though?
It's the dark comedies as well, right?
And I'm not saying that I disagree with you. I'm just saying, how does that follow? How do you see that coming out of cautionary tales?
Well, it's if you just told a guy, if you do this thing, you will die. It's pretty much, straight and forward. But, I think comedy makes, really, really tough topics a little bit more manageable, which is why we have things like Saturday Night Live and, those late-night talk shows as well, to, digest those really big topics. I also watch a lot of stand-up as well, so a lot of big political and big news stories get, stand-upified. Get that comedy treatment.
Satire, right? That's
yeah.
Long been used to either show failure in policy or thought, or how we point out flaws in things, or how we cope with things that are wrong that we can't seem to get away from. So we make jokes.
Again, it is an incredibly human, invention, or reaction comedy is. And I like to think that it's always evolving throughout the years. We start off with, stage comedy. We've developed over to satire and parody. And I think the latest, invention, with at least the birth of technology, is the meme and the short form video.
Yeah, it is interesting how comedy has evolved. That is very true. The meme was kind of a new boon to comedy, and look how that took off.
I kind of argue that it was kind of your generation that helped get the thing on the rails.
When the first memes would have been, what were some examples? I should have done some research. We didn't know we were going to go talk about memes.
I don't think you're ever prepared to talk about memes.
I do remember that it was someone in, I think, my generation who coined the term meme.
I do know there's some interesting lexicon from where meme is derived. I'm pretty sure it's a longer word. The point is, it is always developing, and I kind of do find it funny that give it 10, 15 years, there are going to be university courses on the history of the meme. Early 21st century history, we will be covering David Went to the Dentist.
Yep.
And
crazy ex-girlfriend.
We'll have an entire week just covering the history of Nyan Cat. Really showing our ages with this one. Eh? Comedy in film also, if we look at just the very roots of it. If we go past Birth of a Nation, which is kind of like the first film, we kind of land ourselves on the Lumiere brothers, and they're kind of like Pratt sketch comedies as well. I think there's one where there's like a gardener getting hosed or something like that.
I am not familiar with these. You're going into,
you didn't know? So,
into your university course, please.
Very, very quick history of film. We had the first ever film, which is Birth of a Nation. I think that's like the first ever theatrical release. But the Lumiere brothers, which is the Auguste and Louise, they were kind of one of the first pioneers that developed the cinematograph, which is like the first camera. And so apart from just like, showing off their invention and stuff like that, doing like the first home videos of just the brothers' family, they were also, I guess, technically the first of doing documentaries, because they had workers leaving a factory, their own factory. So I guess that was the first ever street photography, or also just like real life documentary. But yeah, they actually did comedy as well. There was a film where they were like a full-on like sketch, where it was a person stepping on a gardener's hose. Gardener's like, where did the water go? He looks at the end of the gardening hose. Guy steps out the hose. He gets sprayed. They showed that in a theater. People left.
Yep, that's how easy it is. And yet, it's also incredibly difficult, because you have a genre now that's comedy, and it either works or it doesn't, because there's a lot of movies under the genre of comedy that just don't get there. So it's a skill to be able to harness comedy and put it in a script and carry it out.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like there are many, many ways of executing comedy in any form of storytelling, but in at least the visual medium, you have, of course, your physical jokes, like pratfalls, prop comedy, and of course, your verbal humor as well, which is like your jokes about politics, your jokes about yourself, funny stories about your life, and of course your classic puns and wordplay. Subgenre wise, as a person who is a big fan of the comedy genre, there are some subgenres that don't really make me laugh as much as other forms. Like if you showed me Looney Tunes or like your early Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin films, I will genuinely laugh at some of those.
I was impressed when I first saw Buster Keaton. I'm usually not a fan of things like early comedy, but some of the gags that he came up with and the stunts, and they worked. He put a lot of thought into it, and it was impressive.
Yeah, definitely. One of the first ever stunt people as well, I'd have to say. I think he did a lot of those things like live and practically.
Yeah. I saw YouTube clips of some of those things that just basically showed how crazy he was to try those things.
So yeah, actually, yeah. Now that I think about it, a lot of film history is tied straight to the comedy genre, which is cool, because I think we inherently see film as like a really like high art form. Like you walk into a museum and you see like a dot on a white canvas. It's like, yeah, that is high class art. Same with high class cinema. But yeah, no, I think comedy is one of the simplest and sublime and just fun genres of film. And yeah, that's why I think a lot of people, when they start off writing, at least for me, I started with a comedy script.
Okay. What was that script?
It was a mystery comedy. It was technically speaking, it's a buddy comedy. Very Scooby-Doo inspired. It was the script I used for the first ever film script assignment I had at VFS. So yeah,
But you wrote it before VFS.
No, well, I wrote the original idea before VFS, but the first ever full feature-length script was a comedy mystery.
Okay, got you. So it wasn't the very first script you ever wrote, but it was the first feature script you ever wrote.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I guess technically speaking, the first ever thing I've ever written, like a full one, it was a straight mystery with a comedy side character. Because even before I even knew the rules of writing, I wanted to include something funny in what would otherwise be like a straight action and a very, very serious short story that I wrote back in the day.
So how did you choose the side character to add comedy?
How did I choose how to add? I don't know. It just kind of came to me. Like it's hard for me as a person who like kind of sells himself as a comedy writer to be like, how do you be funny?
But what was his thing? Like, how did?
Oh, what was his thing?
Yeah.
He was the so he is a taxi driver that he was a taxi driver in an action short story about a detective that kind of goes full what was it? The movie's blanking on me. Die Hard, that's it. He goes full Die Hard, and the taxi driver's kind of roped up into it. It's mostly him going on police chases in a taxi and dodging bullets and stuff like that, and just saying like, oh my god, if I get out of this alive, I will like murder you or something like that.
So he's.
But yeah, it was mostly like physical comedy with him.
So he's kind of like a bit of a fast talker, or someone who maybe should be more aware of the danger, but he's kind of all in for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's roped into it. Like the detective character is his best friend; he'll do anything for him. But he's like,
or he is aware of the danger, and he's kind of letting the main character know that this is a problem, kind of thing.
The main character like ignores the danger. He's fully into it. But I think the side character, his funniness comes out of the fact like he's recognizing the danger itself, is ranting like completely off the rails about it.
Right, and that provides a foil to the main character.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I made him a full like sidekick character like a Batman Robin, but yeah, he's there.
Nice.
I did try to be funny with it.
So often comedy is about finding things to put two characters at odds with each other.
And I think you definitely see it a lot in a lot of comedy stories, at least the good ones. Even when it comes to something as outlandish as this, I think the best comedy films are still grounded in basic storytelling. You give your character their very simple human goal. You give them a couple characters that support them or go against them, and you just go from there. You just let the gags and the jokes just kind of punch up otherwise pretty normal scenes that you'd put into a regular script, and that's how it makes it a comedy.
Yeah, exactly. You still need a story to be the framework, to be the thing that holds up the film or whatever it is you're writing. Those are still based on good story principles, and then you weave in, build in your comedy mechanics through characters and situations and gags and the different forms comedy can take.
That's what I liked a lot about U.H.F. When I did end up watching it, is that we really do start with George's character in like in a spot that a lot of us would probably find ourselves, which is like being tight in a job, not being able to hold it down, not be able to find a passion in your work you're doing. And when he gets an opportunity to go run his own, it's called a U.H.F. station, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I actually don't know what that stands for.
Well, it's ultra high frequency. It's back when TVs used wave propagation, electromagnetic waves to send the signal, just like radio. But they used the different bands than radio. So one of the bands was U.H.F. And I think the don't quote me on this, but the lesser stations, you've got kind of your main stations that used I think VHF, and it was kind of the next tier down. If you weren't kind of a major player, you were kind of on the fringe, and you used UHF.
Well, the more you know. Yeah, tune into our episodes to hear about film history and also the history of television in that technological sense.
U.H.F. From 1989, the brainchild of Weird Al Yankovic, of musical parody fame. He also did a movie back when he was kind of at the height, or even still on the upward swing of his popularity with music. I think he had just released his third album and was getting quite popular, and he had the idea to do a movie. Other people, I think, told him, yeah, you should do a movie, try to branch out. So him and his manager, who also co-wrote the film, so it was written by both Weird Al and Jay Levy, who also directed it, they found a production company. It took them a few years to actually find one that would take on the project because it was quite unique, trying to do television parody, kind of like he did with music, and fit that into a movie. The results were not so successful at the box office. It was supposed to kind of revive this one production company, Orion, I think it was. It just, the audiences didn't quite react as expected, and so it was considered a flop at the box office, but afterwards it got a cult following, and it has really been a favorite for a lot of people, and definitely one of my favorites as well.
It always just makes me sad when like these really like entertaining movies don't get the recognition they deserve, because U.H.F. really did make me laugh when I did watch it.
What did you think?
Yeah, like I was saying, to lead into this, the talk about U.H.F., it does land you right into a very, it gets you invested in George's story quite early on. Like, he's daydreaming about himself being Indiana Jones in a really, really fun, I guess, parody comedic scene as well. And then, yeah, you see him kind of go through the ups and downs of, you know, living with a roommate. I forgot his name. But, yeah, being tight on money, being supported by his relatives as well, and he gets an opportunity to run the U.H.F. station, which is the perfect job for a guy who has a really overactive imagination,
Yep.
as well as the drive to do whatever it needs to be done.
Like you say, this is a character movie. That's the framework, is that it's about his character, and he starts off as this kind of dreamer who doesn't actualize his dreams. And I think his girlfriend kind of, she points out his flaw in being too much of a dreamer. Then he actually gets a chance to put that dreaming into use with this TV station. So it's kind of like, yeah, he had to make it happen.
It's actually it is him investing so much time with U.H.F. that actually cost him Terry, his girlfriend, because he ended up forgetting her birthday.
That's right. So there's a multiple life lessons that came through this story, because once you sort of have your dream and you're working at it, don't forget your loved ones. Don't forget the people in your life.
Really, it's that work-life balance, to be fair.
Yeah. What else?
Yeah,
what else did you like about it? What stood out to you?
Aside from the plethora of pop culture references, which I always did like, I'm kind of happy that I knew at least a few of those 1980s, 90s references to movies.
Well, that's what's curious to me, is like someone from your generation watching this, you're quite removed from the pop culture. So yeah, what did you get and what didn't you get?
I obviously got the big ones, right? I got Rambo and I got Indiana Jones. But I'm happy I got a couple of the smaller ones as well. Like, I know there's a scene where I think it was George's character yelling at the camera that he's mad as hell. Or it might be Stanley Spadowski, but that was from the movie Network, I think it's called. I think with the scientist character, that was a Doc Brown reference as well.
I think it maybe evoked Doc Brown a little bit, but I think it wasn't so much specifically about parodying Doc Brown, Back to the Future, as it was just parodying science shows.
Just scientist character.
Like there's science TV shows, right? This character, see, I love parody. That's like half of this movie, and Weird Al kind of is his ability to execute parody so well. But he's also a master of the ridiculous, of harnessing the ridiculous. And so the example that I mean, it's just kind of a thing with science shows that you do experiments on air. And the thing that he says about when he's interviewing his show, and he's got this completely flat personality, right? And he's like, tune in next week when we'll learn how to make plutonium out of common household items. And it's just so ridiculous. And from the mind of Weird Al, I just love comedy like that.
I always kind of want to know which scenes Weird Al specifically wrote and which ones Mr. Levy wrote.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know. It might have been someone else, but I mean, I think when a team writes something, it's capturing, you know, both their minds together to some extent, because they're going to read what each other have wrote. Basically, I kind of look at it as it's distilled from both of their minds, whether or not it was one that actually wrote that joke.
Yeah, no, it definitely had a really consistent, I think, sense of humor, I think. I could only think that Weird Al did the more outlandish movie references once, and then somebody else did like the more subtle wordplay ones. But actually, yeah, before I talk about that, I really really love the commercial bits whenever they did it.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much laughed at every single one of them. The spatula warehouse,
Spatula City,
like the funeral home one.
Mm-hmm.
And like even the bumpers for all the different shows that they were doing. Gandhi 2.
Gandhi
And,
too, so funny.
And Conan the Librarian, that was also a reference I could get.
Yes, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger who was reprising his
No,
role
it
for
wasn't,
that,
but they made sure to give him a thick Austrian accent.
Yes, I picked up on that, yeah. But yeah, those were great.
Yeah, and again, just like
gosh.
parody, but also bringing in that element of the ridiculous, because like when you're gonna do the parody for Conan the Librarian, it's already ridiculous, right? You're not just parodying Conan the Barbarian, you're taking it to the next level where you're putting him in the context of a librarian, which is just a ridiculous shift. And then playing it out, like the scene, like what are you going to do when you've got this character Conan the Librarian? Well, someone's going to bring him books that are overdue. Hey, these books are a little overdue, sorry. And then what does Conan do? He splits the guy in half with his axe. So it goes immediately to a high gear in the ridiculous, which again I credit to kind of the mind of Weird Al.
And like the other reason I love those comedy commercial bits is they're literally like maybe like 45 to a minute long, 45 seconds to a minute. So it's really really easy to write these comedy scenes and make them funny. Well, I wouldn't say easy to write them, you know. You obviously have to it helps to do it with another person to see if a joke lands, see how a scene plays out. But yeah, like on the page you could write a whole thing in like less than a page, maybe even 2 pages, just to get all your, I guess, the action details of how to sell that joke work.
They parody the game show phenomenon with Wheel of Fish. And
Yep.
again, funny subversion, right? To change Wheel of Fortune to Wheel of Fish. So it's ridiculous in itself. But then they get their part of the premise of the film is that he's got to make do with a low budget, and so he's got to use all his friends for the actors in his shows that he's creating. So one of their friends, him and his roommate, that is Kuni, the karate teacher that is in the
Love
same
him.
building that they live in. So they get him to be the host of Wheel of Fish, but the problem with him is his manner. You hear him when he's teaching his karate students. When they fail, he's like, "You are so stupid."
Stupid.
And then when
You get nothing.
someone fails on the game show, he isn't exactly understanding and berates them with his classic "You are so stupid." And then it gets even more ridiculous because there's the "what's in the box" gag, where you either take the fish or what's in the box, expecting it could be a prize. And what's in the box? Absolutely nothing.
I will have to say he got the biggest laugh out of me throughout this entire film, where it was the end scene with the mafia guys, and him and his entire karate team are in the supply closet, and just like, supplies. That's my level of comedy. If you can just make a pun, that's it. I'm done for the day.
Classic pun use right there. Yeah, so many funny bits in this one. I mean, it does hold a special place in my heart because I watched this, I think probably when I was like 8 years old first with my dad and my sister. And I remember we had to stop the movie because we were laughing so hard. I think it was Raoul's Wild Kingdom when he's teaching poodles how to fly, and he's just tossing them out the window, and he's hoping that one of them will learn how to fly. And then they cut to the scene from the outside, and you see there's quite a large pile of poodles that have sadly passed away. But in a comedy movie, that's quite gold. I think I've probably laughed at different parts of the movie more as I've gotten older. There's kind of gags that are funnier at a certain age, and others that are funnier when you're older. But I definitely have lots of memories of laughing to this movie.
This is definitely the kind of movie I kind of want to watch again, just so I can if not get all the references this time, just be able to laugh at it, because I
It
definitely
is
will
worth
probably.
rewatching. It is, yes, it rewards repeated viewing. So many gags, and that's to me is one of the secrets, if you want to call it a secret, of good comedy, or qualities of a good quality film, is that joke density, and can you keep a consistency with your comedy throughout the film, so that it carries you through it and doesn't kind of let you down for long periods of time. Again, like I've said before, I've got kind of a high bar for comedy, yeah, which I think it's hard to do. It's not easy.
With comedy, you're not going to always get everybody. There's probably a couple of jokes that will probably get a laugh out of a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, it's hard to match everybody's sense of humor, because people do have different senses of humor. So that adds to the challenge of making good comedy.
There's definitely an element of, like, if you're going to watch this movie, you have to kind of be a fan of the form of comedy it's trying to deliver. So, like, I don't see a comedy film not making you laugh as a bad sign. If it's, like, consistently unfunny,
Yeah,
then maybe.
it's still something to make a comedy that is, memorably funny, even if it's not the funniest thing all throughout, because it's still challenging. If you appease, half the population with half the jokes, and the other half the population with the other half, you're still successful. That would still be pretty hard to do, but it might not be all things to all people.
I was going to say, right, if we're going to, like, really look at how we should be reviewing comedy films, obviously you should be looking at how it makes you laugh, but also just the underlying actual story underneath it, your general character development, story arcs, and all. And I would kind of have to say U.H.F. does have a pretty solid one, I think, because you have that really simple story with George. He meets Stanley Spadowski, which really, like, it's just both really funny. It's the linchpin to his whole show. He's the #1 seller. He's the one who's a generally really funny and, like, entertaining guy, and emotionally resonant. Surprisingly, he was able to captivate a whole audience of bikers and a biker gang.
And he had that stirring network speech, and
his one speech about mopping the floor and as an allegory for life, which I loved. As far as, like, the things that this show could do better, it's kind of hard to, like, say that, because, like, how serious do you really want this kind of show to be? And I think it's obviously not serious at all. But, they still have, this plotline of George and his girlfriend, Terry, that I think, if they were going to include it, I probably want to see a little bit more, because it's kind of just, he's with his girlfriend, they break up, and then they're back together because Terry sees his telethon. It is only, like, a little over 90 minutes, so you got to dedicate some runtime to the more important things.
Yeah, you need the heart to come through, even in a comedy, because you're telling the story of the character and the situation, so that has to have some level of resonating with the audience, so that the comedy has a place to kind of hang out on the greater story.
The other nitpick I probably have with this is we do have a cast of characters that are the crew of U.H.F. Like, you have George and his roommate, and of course Stanley, but you also have Pamela, who's the reporter / secretary, and then you have I think his name is, like, McIntosh or something like that, who's the short camera guy, as well as the tall camera guy, who's, like, the normal one who films the Stanley Spadowski show, and of course the scientist dude who lives in the U.H.F. station. That if I were writing it, I would love to have more of an interaction, like almost sitcom-y office vibe between all of them, to, like, just really establish, like, they are co-workers, employees, if not a family.
They could have gone that way, and of course you would expect that for a TV series, because you've got a lot more time and space to explore those relationships. And time is kind of at a premium with a film, and they did have to fit in a lot of those parody sketches, the TV show and the advertisements for the shows, and so they had a challenge for this one that way, to have story and those set pieces and all fit it into a movie format and time. So they probably didn't succeed as good as they could have with blending it. But then again, some people, myself being one of them, I was super happy with how often they went to the parody bits, and I didn't need as much story.
No, I got you. I was gonna say the movie this one most reminded me of was actually the 2011 Muppets movie, because it's almost the same premise of like the Muppets trying to revive their
Right,
Muppet
yeah.
show through a telethon. The one difference is if the Muppets is actually a longer movie than U.H.F. because it's Disney, it's a bigger budget. But yeah, no, it's still I think U.H.F. still has its props. I think I'd actually personally rate it like a 4-star, but like the highest 4-star I can give a 4-star movie.
I guess I've got to share two favorites, but my favorite is probably when he's doing Uncle Nutsy's Funhouse, and he's just starting it, and so the live studio audience kids, they just hate being there. They're all
Oh yeah.
being forced to be there. It's a show that has not gone well before he took it over, and even while he's trying to take it over, and he tries to go talk to the kid. Hey, what's your name? Billy. Billy what? And he spits in his face. It's just right to the ridiculous extreme action that this conversation can go. He's trying to be so kid friendly. And then the shop teacher, the demonstration of the table saw. And of course that goes to an extreme. But even before that, the little bit of comedy when this shop teacher, who they're kind of parodying shop teachers being kind of antisocial, I guess, but his personality is very talks slow and has a bit of a strange cadence to his voice.
I thought the shop teacher was actually Spadowski, just doing a bit.
No, so when they do it's called Town Talk, but they bring on local shop teacher. I forget his name in the film, but he's a comedian called Emo Phillips or Emo Williams. He's introducing the table saw, and he says, there's only a few simple principles you need to remember when operating a sophisticated piece of machinery like this. And he struggles to find the word table saw, and then George fills in table saw, and then it offends the shop teacher, and he gives this look of like, you're showing off or whatever. And it was just hilarious performance by
I could definitely see why this is your top
it is
favorite.
one of my top favorites in my comedy favorites. It sometimes sits at the top and sometimes is in probably the top 3 or top 5.
Honestly, depending on how you're feeling, right?
I have to probably give it a 5 for comedy. I sometimes keep separate metrics for, or I feel like I keep separate metrics for different film genres.
I did the same thing with animation, as I've told you. But yeah. Honestly, though, Weird Al, probably the best celebrity to represent our podcast, because I think he uses live action and also animation a lot. In his later years, he actually does become like a voice actor in a lot of
Oh, really?
TV cartoons I grew up watching.
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, he has a lead role in actually, if you know Phineas and Ferb, there is a spin-off series called Milo Murphy's Law, about a kid who only has like the Milo Murphy's law effect, where everything that can go wrong does go wrong for him, and he's voiced by Weird Al. I recommend checking that out if you're a really big fan of his work. Aside from that, I know he's also in Star vs. the Forces of Evil, as well as My Little Pony, as a very comedic Weird Al Yankovic characters with crazy hair. Also in another one, a very fun British sitcom, I think it's called like Gallivant or something like that, where he's a singing monk.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that one either. I know of obviously his music and a few cameos he's done. He was also cameoed in The Naked Gun. But he also did a fun bit with a music network in the 80s and 90s. I think these bits were in the 90s with Much Music. Or MTV. Maybe it was MTV. In Canada, it's Much Music, but in the States, theirs was MTV. And he basically did a whole bunch of like crazy mock interviews and basically took over MTV for big blocks of time. And that was pretty funny. And fun fact, when I first got a Twitter account, right around the time when Twitter came out, I was an early adopter.
Ooh.
And I sort of was figuring out how Twitter worked and what you could do, and I learned how, celebrities use Twitter, and you could actually tweet them, contact them. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Who's one that I could try tweeting to? And I found Weird Al. And this was probably in early 2000s.
It was still called Twitter before it was called X or something like that.
All I tweeted was U.H.F. 2 ? Trying to maybe get him to think about making a sequel. And he actually responded to my tweet, because I think probably that was so early that not a lot of people were trying to tweet celebrities, and so nowadays they'd be overrun and they wouldn't bother responding to most. But he responded and said, 1 page down, 89 to go.
It's only been, what, 20 or 30 years since that movie came out? I'm definitely overestimating.
Yeah, it's, 89, so
U.H.F.
almost 30.
So, yeah, almost 30 years. I am looking forward for the sequel. Like, what is it? Police Squad already got a sequel, a remake with Leslie...
No, almost 40 years.
Yeah, 40 years.
Weird Al, if you're listening, you're welcome on our show. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about your animated and live-action music videos and movies as well.
All things.
So, yeah. All things, yeah. But shifting from Weird Al, honestly, we could probably have a whole episode just about him. I give you my animated movie to watch as well.
Yes, Pirates, a movie with an exceptionally long name. Not many have superseded it. Pirates, Band of Misfits, An Adventure with Scientists.
I have to actually fact correct you on that one. So, Band of Misfits and Adventure with Scientists are actually alternate titles. Adventure with Scientists is actually the British title when it got released in British cinema, and Band of Misfits is the American. But the original is An Adventure with Scientists because this movie is actually an adaptation of a series of books.
Oh, okay.
That always go the pirates, and their adventure. So Adventure with Scientists, I looked it up. There's also Adventure with Napoleon, Adventure with Communists, and yeah, of course, Adventure with Scientists, which is the book that this got adapted from.
Is that the first time that Aardman's has gone and taken other IP and made a film?
Actually, I should check that because yeah, no, Wallace and Gromit is his own original thing, and so is Chicken Run.
Because that's what I assumed, is that they did their own stuff. So that's interesting to me that they went and tried some IP, which is cool. It seems the pirate adventure is like perfectly suited to claymation.
Really?
They picked a great context to do their classic claymation treatment.
I guess claymation does kind of fit the pirate genre a little bit well.
Oh, sure, it does.
Animation, I think, also does suited pretty well as well.
It's not like it to the exclusion of animation, but when it comes to claymation, you want contexts that are lively and have kind of some elaborate props and set dressings and characters with like costumes, and this context has all of that, and it's suitable for extreme things to happen. Giant fish that come out of the water and swallow the whole boat, kind of thing. That level of craziness.
No, I gotcha. Because yeah, I just did a quick Google. This is currently the only claymated pirate movie that I can find. I guess apparently, according to you, it's a very open market for the pirate claymation genre.
I'm sure there are other contexts as well that would be quite suitable for claymation, but this is one of them.
I also did a quick check. This is also the only Aardman movie that is also based off of a pre-existing IP. Definitely an interesting step for Aardman, and from what I can understand, similar to U.H.F, it probably was a little bit successful at the box office, but not too successful. I just know they got one Oscar nomination when it was around.
Okay.
Yeah, how did you like it?
It was a great Aardman entry. I mean, I'm a fan of Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run, so this kind of falls right into line. I just like the creativity of Aardman's claymation. I would say that not all the gags made me laugh. Some of them definitely did. And again, as you know, I'm a picky person when it comes to comedy. But you don't always watch these movies just for the laughter. It's the story and the gags along the way, and the kind of the creativity that goes into it, and how you're going to see other things in a movie that's claymation than you would live action or even animation, I think. There's just different types of movements and gags that come out of it. So it's almost like there's a new type of, or a different type of creativity that can come out of it. So there's a lot of like dynamic movements, and also I think things that subvert expectation, like the way that at the end this Queen Victoria, who's the really like elaborately dressed queen and very prim and proper, they turn her into a dual sword wielding, like back flipping warrior, and I think that works so well with claymation.
Yeah, it's like she has that scene where she like unbuckles her dress or something like that. She instantly sheds like all her pounds, and like she's now a ninja, which is a fun action scene as well as a comedy scene as well.
And you can do a lot of action-y type stuff with claymation as well. That's the choreography is, when it comes to choreography, which is, we could do an episode on that, although we kind of already have talked about Jackie Chan. He's definitely one that does both comedy and choreography, but they go really well together.
100%
to fit in choreography with claymation.
If we can find a stunt person or a dancer to come onto our podcast, we can definitely do a whole episode on movie choreography involving claymation. But yeah, apart from that, the comedy is definitely very British. I think you'll notice that in both Aardman and other works as well.
They try to do kind of the British style humor. I did find like it was a lot of mini gag humor as well, which if you're going to do a comedy movie, like I said, you want, that comedy density to be high, but it can come in different forms, right? Like it could be comedy mechanics based on your characters and dialogue, or it can be these sort of mini gag moments, and they packed a lot of those in this movie. So it does keep the comedy density high, in the sense that there's always a gag going on before too many seconds or minutes go by.
It definitely is a very entertaining movie, I would say. If we compare it to U.H.F, I think this one has a little bit more focus on a plot. I think it's all revolving around Polly the Dodo, both as a mascot and family member of the pirate crew, as well as the asphyxiation of both Queen Victoria and also Charles Darwin, who is also in this movie. And also, of course, kind of similar to U.H.F, it's a story about a guy kind of down on his luck, trying to achieve great success, trying to become the pirate of the year, and he's competing with a bunch of other suitable pirates as well that are arguably better than him. But he gets his claim to fame by showing off his dodo at a scientific community, as a scientific contest, Scientist of the Year, getting the accolades of Queen Victoria, and ending up selling the dodo to her for a massive sum of gold and treasure and booty. Yeah,
it goes for the riches over friendship at first.
Of course, he does come around, yeah.
And then he has to learn the lesson that it's not about the riches. So yeah, it is a good character arc. I kind of framed it as he goes from someone who needs the outside affirmation of being the best pirate in the world to someone who recognizes that he has what he needs around him and he has his calling, and that's enough, because he doesn't actually get... He gets the highest bounty, so he kind of becomes... achieves his calling at the end, but he doesn't get the Pirate of the Year award. It doesn't show him, which I think was a good choice by the writers, because he ended up not needing the honor.
All he needs is his weekly ham night, which I loved.
But yeah, some good moments in this one. Some of the good jokes is when he wants to try giving up piracy and trying maybe go into baby clothes, because babies grow so fast. So, which is why they say you should go into baby clothes. But to hear pirates say that. It's pretty funny. And then Charles Darwin, who's writing in his journal and is worried about never getting a girlfriend. Pretty funny. And
yeah, he sadly writes, and now we are being attacked by pirates.
Then when he's talking to his shipmates, we laugh in the face of danger, and one of them replies, "Oh, I don't," and one's like, "I don't really like it at all."
Yeah, incredibly good use of side characters, I think, with all the pirate crew. Everyone kind of has their both unique look, as you said, as well as the guy that they're most associated with. The incredibly curvaceous pirate is my favorite one because it's just a girl dressed up as a pirate. The one with the weird eye, I think that's his name as well.
Was that the albino?
Yeah, the albino
with the red eyes. Yeah, which was cool because not very often you see an albino represented in film, and they went and did it, so that was cool.
Yeah. Again, very diverse cast. As far as my favorite jokes, my favorite recurring one is actually Charles Darwin's monkey butler.
Oh yeah,
I like the way he Wile E. Coyotes his way through talking. I remember when Darwin was plotting to kidnap Polly in his house. He first flashes up a big card that says "butt," and he tells him to shush, be quiet. So he does a tiny "butt" in lowercase letters.
Yes, yeah, that's right. That was good.
And when he falls down the hole, we actually see him scream with the cards as well, falling after him. But yeah, also did double check. Actually, it was a moderate success at the box office. It actually did make its money back. Okay. Yeah, quite a few nominations.
I mean, people know Aardman. People know kind of what they're getting. So
yeah.
I still haven't watched the new Wallace and Gromit that's on Netflix. It's on my list.
It's definitely a fun movie, I would say. Definitely fan service. Good for the Wallace and Gromit fans out there, as well as Aardman's other projects as well. There's some references to them.
I was not quite sure. One of the things I didn't feel quite right about, and still kind of weighing it, but their use of a Flight of the Conchords song as a soundtrack song, the "I'm Not Crying" song, which is comedy in itself. Like Flight of the Conchords are a comedy group. I'm assuming you know them.
I actually don't. No, I'm not a huge music guy.
Okay, well, look them up sometime. They eventually got a TV show called Flight of the Conchords, based on their stage comedy, which was all music based or primarily music based, where they would sing comedy songs, kind of their style of it. And one of them, and I think this was one that was made for the show, not for their stage bit, but I'm not sure, but was "I'm Not Crying." And so you can look it up. I'm sure you'll find it on YouTube, but they originated that song for one of their comedy shows, and now it's on another movie. The producers of this movie chose to put it into their movie, so it's like you're kind of borrowing comedy from somewhere else, but then again, you have to buy a soundtrack song. Yeah. For your film. Why not buy one that's funny already? So it's one of those, could work, maybe works, maybe doesn't.
I'll have to rewatch that scene again to figure out where they actually used the song. It wasn't when they were sailing. It wasn't that pirate montage one.
No, it's when sometime after the pirate captain loses something. I think it's when he loses all his friends, but I could be wrong.
That must be.
But anyway, he's at a low point. And he is very sad, and so
we could we should honestly. It's another episode idea. It's the use of pre-existing music. Buying the rights to music for bumping up a scene for a movie.
There's some big kind of ups you can bring to a scene or a film by choosing your soundtrack and choosing existing songs. There are some memorable ones, but it costs a lot of money, and so you don't always see it.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, you definitely have to do it for a really, really specific scene and execute it well. You'd rather a different song be used for that low point scene then?
Well, and that's what I'm not sure of. I'm still weighing it. I mean, it is a comedy movie that's it's not serious, so you're not really going outside the territory of comedy, out of your territory of your genre. I guess I feel like my first thought was, well, if you can't stand on your own comedy, you're only kind of proving that by going outside to get someone else's comedy and bring it into your movie.
Which is kind of hypocritical coming from a guy who does parody. I think hypocritical might be too harsh, but...
Who does parody?
No, if you see a reference in a movie because your argument of like they're borrowing someone else's comedy to put into yours kind of feels like it would also apply to times when a movie references other comedy films.
Yeah, so I guess that's like with parody, you have to construct parody. Like it takes skill to construct good parody, and it's your brainchild when you do. And so this just felt like it was outside. But again, it's a soundtrack choice, and so you are going to put some soundtrack into your film. So it's a valid choice because it's a song that exists. And so I'm like the jury is still kind of out. Maybe it's fine.
I would definitely recommend people still to check it out. It is a adventure comedy, which is my favorite kind of comedy because I weigh plot a lot more than just jokes. I guess it's because I did grow up watching Looney Tunes that always set their gags in like a framework. Like everything is going to be revolving around Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny running away from Elmer Fudd, or Tom and Jerry chasing each other inside of a very specific location. And yeah, that does give you almost like Jackie Chan-esque action. It does give you like a limited tool set of what things you could use to tell your jokes, which I think is a lot more easier from a creative standpoint to give you a little bit of constrictions of what you can and cannot do. I do like U.H.F. where they're able to just do everything, but still frame it in the context of a TV station. Pirates definitely they always kept consistently piratey, which is what I liked, while having in really funny gags like putting handbrakes on your carriages and pirate ships.
Yeah, it's a very cohesive film with its theme and its setting.
So what would you rate Pirates Band of Misfits / Adventures with Scientists?
Probably give it a 3.5.
I would actually do what you did with U.H.F. and actually give it a 4.5.
Yes, and as you mentioned, Roadrunner, did you mention? No.
Wile E. Coyote.
What? Yeah, you mentioned Wile E. Coyote. I thought you did.
Yeah, they also reference that in U.H.F., right?
Which I wanted to bring up because that's also one of my favorite moments of Weird Al Yankovic's humor when he's depressed and he intros the Wile E. Coyote cartoon. It's a sad, depressing story about a pathetic coyote who spends every waking moment of his life in the futile pursuit of a sadistic roadrunner who mocks him and laughs at him as he's repeatedly crushed and maimed. And he's obviously as high volume as he could be.
Actually, if you want to have some interesting Wile E. Coyote news, apparently he does have potentially a movie coming out called Wile E. Coyote Sues Acme, because of all the different inventions he buys from them that just like inadvertently explodes in his face.
Yeah, I've been reading some entertainment news about that. I think Will Forte is in that one, and it's been hidden in the vaults, or like they've resisted releasing it for some reason. I think some economic reason, but someone's fighting to get it actually released.
Yeah.
So I heard it's probably coming out.
Yeah, it has now a 2026 release date, as of the time of recording. So yeah, something to look forward to. I'm sure Weird Al will be one of the first people lining up to watch it.
All right.
Yeah, another episode in the books for us, eh?
That brings us to the close of this one.
Hope you guys had some fun times. Maybe you laughed at a couple of the attempts at the jokes here, as it is the comedy special.
And maybe you'll check out one of or both of these two entertaining movies.
100%.
Expand your comedy horizons. But for now, it's Jay and Dave signing off.
And that's a wrap. Special thanks to Niranj, who made the intro and outro music for this podcast. You can find him on Instagram at his handle @NiranjD. That is @NIRANJD on Instagram.